I had a seller call me last week. Their voice was shaking. They did not have a lot of confidence behind their tone. And I had an idea of what they were actually going to talk to me about. They were thinking of selling their home, but unfortunately, it's at a significant loss. This is something that I am dealing with day in and day out right now in this real estate market. We've got sellers who've bought in the last few years and they need to move, but they might not be able to. They're just financially trapped in the homes that they've purchased. It's a difficult situation for a lot of people, and these are not investors we're talking about. We're talking about people who bought the home to live in. Maybe they're coming up with a divorce. Maybe their circumstances have changed with their family, and now they are forced to sell their home in a situation that is completely upside down. We have today the top 10 neighborhoods that have seen the biggest drops since the peak market. Today we have a beautiful chart from Insaga here done with the Huawei stats, and as you can see, GTA neighborhoods where single family home prices have dropped since the peak, and you're gonna see some areas where there's 50% losses in those areas. So some really scary numbers, and unfortunately this just might be the beginning of the market really taking a little bit of a downturn here. So we have some really big neighborhoods that have taken some massive losses. The number one is Huttonville in Brampton. Back in 2022, they were seeing the median home price at 1.760. Fast forward to today, 825,000. Second neighborhood is Rougemont in Pickering, and if I butcher any of these cities' names or neighborhoods' names, well, I'm sorry. Average price there was $2,076,000, and that's coming in now at a 50% loss, $1,040,000. Third, Brampton, the Vales of Humber, $3.65 million is what it was looking like in 2022. Now we're looking at 1,830. So we have seen a 50% reduction here. Let's head to Toronto. Winfield's neighborhood, they were at 6.3. Now they are down 49%. That is $3 million less for your average home in this area, down to 3.270. That's a massive loss, and it keeps going here. We've got Wanless Park in Toronto, was 4.1, now down to 2.1 with a 47% loss in just a 3-year time period. Mineola in Mississauga is down from 2.6 to 1.4, a 46% loss. Oshawa's Northwood neighborhood, 1.3 to 751. This is a 44% loss. Tyandaga, that's always a fun one to say. In Burlington, they're down to 1,020,000 from 1.7 in the peak market. That's a 41% reduction. Now we're going to finish it off. Church Yonge corridor, that is 2.7 back in 2022. Now we're looking at 1.6, 40% drop. And to finish it off, Westgate in Brampton, an older neighborhood, was at 1.4. Now 895,000. That's a price that I can get around, and that's 40% reduction. So we have seen some really, really tough hits in some of these neighborhoods. Now these are just the top 10. These are some really massive percentages. $3 million in that Winfield's neighborhood is unbelievable. Now, when I see a chart like this, this is where we should really start to be thinking it's happening. The market is really not in a good position. Now, a lot of this doesn't necessarily matter if you are buying and selling in the same market. You're going to take advantage and you're going to take a hit depending on what you're doing. If you're selling, if you're going to sell a little bit less, but you're going to be able to negotiate with those buyers. But if you are just selling in this market, these people on this chart in these neighborhoods that are forced to sell, they're not investors. These are really, really difficult losses. If you're buying a $6 million home, yes, you have money. You probably had a lot of equity, but I don't know if you had over $3 million of equity. Maybe in Brampton, you bought for 1.4, but you didn't have $600,000 equity or down payment. You're taking a hit. These do not even take into consideration all the additional expenses that you've lost out on. Your commissions, your land transfer tax when you bought this property, that's gone. It's vanished. What you've paid over the last 3 years, this chart is extremely discouraging for homeowners. If you're in these neighborhoods and you're maybe thinking of selling and you don't have equity, these neighborhoods are probably, hitting that bottom before the rest of the market does. How much more can these specific neighborhoods come down? I'm not quite sure. Do I think we're at the bottom? Probably not. We're getting warning signs from the Bank of Canada that we're not getting a rate reduction. We're also hearing banks saying they're probably not going to step in and save people financially. There's going to come a point in time where some people might just cut bait and take their losses now, knowing that there might be more losses down the road. And then other people are willing to stay in their properties for a longer period of time and then hope that this market will eventually climb back up. Not to the peak numbers, I don't know if we'll ever get there again, but into a more manageable price. The market right now is very shaky. Buyers, the confidence is not there for them to get into the market, especially if there are a lot of options. It's putting a lot of the buyers in a paralysis kind of state. They can't make a decision because there's so many choices, and then they see some really low sales, and then they think to themselves, I'm going to wait. So that's what we're seeing happen quite often right now. Now, whoever's transacting right now, we got a video talking directly about the sales and who's actually transacting right now, but it really is those people who own properties and are making jumps within the market. You're going to be selling at a little bit of a lower price, but you're also going to be buying at a little bit lower of a price compared to previous markets. So those are the people who are actually able to move fluidly in the real estate market. And those are generally the people who are okay in most downturns or upturns. They're going to get more money for their house and they're going to pay more money for the next, or they're going to get less money for their house and pay less money for their next. So sometimes it's okay if you own a property and you have some equity. But this market is leaving a lot of confusion for first-time home buyers, and those who are trying to exit or downsize are seeing their equity just vanish, their retirement vanish. So should you sell now? Maybe. Do you want to hold on to it for a little bit longer and see if things get better? That's completely up to you. I think no matter what the Bank of Canada does, we're not going to see the market flux at all, and we're not going to see it increase in value. I think right now there's a lot more issues with the economy, and this chart is just a small example of what's happening in our markets. There's been a lot of people losing a lot of money, but 53% losses in the Huttonville neighborhood is just wild, and then $3 million losses in Winfield's neighborhood in Toronto. That's a lot of money. That's a lot more money than a lot of people have their entire lives in some cases. And that's just vanishing on people's homes. Let me know what you would do if you were in this situation. If you're a home seller and you're looking at your property and it's just half of what you've paid for it, what do you do? I'm going to leave it with you here. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.